Wrong button. Wrong button. Okay. All right. Can you all see that? Awesome. So, like I said, this is going to be all about really understanding your nervous system. We're going to get into some science. We're also going to get into some very like tangible, everyday like things that you can do. So if you're like to take notes, I would definitely recommend like having a little notepad or something nearby, or take some notes on your phone. My intention here is not to like blast you with information, but to give you kind of the key pieces that will give you a really, really good overview and really empower you to understand just how your system works, how you can, as the title says, biohack your own nervous system. This is kind of getting the cheat codes to your body, the cheat codes to operating well. So a little bit about my experience with this and why I created this is earlier this year, like almost a year ago, I was doing way too much. I was running my business, running YDA, which is very like hands-on. Like I am the client care, the social media marketer, the manager, the admin, like doing all the things of like running a business. That's very hands-on. That's very, I'm working with humans all the time. And at the same time, I was also working for another coaching company at the same time. So I was basically doing two full-time jobs that were I had to be on for all of it, like doing things all the time, talking with people, doing lots of Zoom calls, lots of just like tons of interaction, tons of time on my computer and my screens, dancing and training a lot. And at the same time had just joined a 7-month-long intensive like trauma healing practitioner course. So I was doing the most. My schedule was maxed out. And up until that point, the last 2 years before, I had been just doing that, just like chugging along at that speed, building my business, building YDA, hadn't really had a break, had just been going, and had been kind of used to relying on this internal energy, this internal fire and drive that like just kept me going. Like I was able to just really enthusiastically handle a lot on my plate and do a lot and be on and be handling all the things until January came and I just like hit a wall completely. And for the first time in my life, just felt so completely drained and depleted, like didn't even have the energy to like get out of bed, was so exhausted. Everything felt so impossible. And that's kind of typical of burnout, just everything, it feels so much harder. Just meeting the demands of life feels so much harder. And it was really stressful and scary and just so wild to just all of a sudden not have this like motivation, this ability to like push through, like truly physically, mentally, emotionally, like could not do anything. Felt so like negative and tired. Like burnout and depression can really feel like the same thing. So I was in a hole, I guess, knocked on my booty, and it took me a few months to really like get out of that, and really understand why I was in that hole in the first place. And a lot of it had to do completely with what was going on in my nervous system. So I'm going to be sharing with you guys today, like what helped me get out of that hole. Because right now I'm feeling great. And so I just want to help set you guys up so that you do not fall into the hole like I did, or if you've been in the hole of burnout, you're able to pull yourself out of it. So to get started, I'm actually going to have us here's basically the agenda for class today. We're going to start with a guided somatic exploration of your nervous system. I want you to, before I get into teaching you about your nervous system, I want you to feel, I want you to understand, and have an experience with the different states of your nervous system. That's going to give so much context to then we're going to get into some learning about understanding the science of burnout, really understanding the basics of your autonomic nervous system, which is the thing that is running the show. And then we'll get into some rituals and routines and solutions for reclaiming your energy. And then at the end, if we have some time, we can do a little Q&A and kind of just chat if you guys have any questions. We'll just wrap up there. So before we get into all that, we're gonna, like I said, get into a more somatic, which just means it's body, kind of like a body-based meditation, okay, to really understand how your nervous system works, how your mind-body connection can change based on what you are experiencing in life. So I'm going to just start with like a guided meditation for you guys. So I want you guys to go ahead and get seated somewhere. You can do this seated actually or lying down. I'm going to leave it up to you guys, whatever is most comfortable to help you feel like you can get into your body. And what I want you to focus on most during this is what's happening in your body. The purpose of this is to really feel your body, observe what's happening in your body, get really in tune with what kind of sensations do you feel? How does your energy shift? Are there certain parts of your body that you notice? What comes online? What sensations are there physically? So we're going to be working with what's called our interoception, our ability to feel what's happening inside of our body, to feel how our own emotions or our thoughts or certain memories or situations create change physiologically in ourselves, okay? So we're not so much going to be lingering too much on like the thoughts and like the memories, because we're going to be getting into invoking some memories, but I really want you to be paying attention and taking note and kind of just being in a space of curious observation of what's going on in your body as we're going through this meditation, okay? So there's no right or wrong thing for you to feel or experience. We're purely just bringing some curiosity into what is happening in our body when we're not paying attention. Because most of the time we're living up in our head, and there's a lot going on in our body. Our body is always having its own experience. So this is going to give context to what we're going to learn about the nervous system. Sound good? Okay, yay, Olivia's here. Perfect timing. We'll let her hop on. But in the meantime, just go ahead and get comfy. If there's any stretching or wiggles or anything you want to get out so you can sit in some stillness for a little bit. Hello, Olivia. Welcome in, babe. You're just in time. Hello. We are going to drop into a little meditation. So this may feel pretty familiar, Olivia, to some of the work we've done in YDA. We're going to do a somatic meditation session, okay? So you came just in time, so go ahead and get comfy. You can sit or lie down. And we're just going to be scanning through the body, feeling into the body, really focusing on the physical experience. Okay. All right, everyone. So go ahead and get comfy, let your eyes close. Taking a moment to settle into a space of meditative awareness. We'll start off with 3 deep cleansing breaths. So breathing in through the nose and letting the exhale out through your mouth with a sigh. And just letting your breath be easy and natural. And I'm going to invite you to just begin scanning through your body, starting with your feet, feeling into your toes, soles of your feet, your ankles, and feeling into your shins and your calves, inviting those muscles to relax and soften. Scanning up through your knees. And from your knees, tracing your awareness along your legs, up your quads and your hamstrings. Feeling your bones, just feeling the space that your body takes up in the room. Feeling up to your hips, all along your pelvis. Can you feel your pelvic floor? Can you feel your tailbone, your sacrum, and the muscles of your glutes? See if you can send your breath all the way down to the bottom of your torso, to your pelvis. And from there, tracing your awareness up through your stomach and your low back and your womb space. Breathing into your low belly. And then letting your awareness move up towards your ribs, your heart space. See if you can breathe evenly into the front of your chest and the back. Feeling your full 360 degrees of lung capacity. Feeling into your fingers, your hands, palms of your hands, your wrists. Letting your awareness move up through your forearms towards your elbows. From your elbows up to your shoulders. See if you can let your shoulders drop down and back. And feeling your way up through your neck, your throat, to your jaw, up to your head. You can feel the muscles of your face, your cheeks, your brow. And just feeling your body as a whole. And just kind of taking stock. How are you feeling today? Where's your energy at? How does your body feel? And now I'm going to invite you to think of either a place or a person that you feel very safe around. That you feel very calm, very comfortable, like you can just totally be yourself. Walls are totally down, heart is open. Just pick one, either place, maybe it's a memory, or maybe it's a person. You think of a memory you have with this person. Something that's very comforting. The space that you feel like you can be yourself, a sense of bliss, happiness, ease. And let that memory fill you up. See if you can immerse yourself and let yourself soak in the feeling of that place or being with that person. Letting this memory grow really strong in your mind, in your heart. Almost like you were back there in that space or with that person. From here, while you're still holding the vision of this memory or this experience, I want you to start to notice how your body feels. And there's certain sensations. Is there a warmth? Is there a tingling? Is there a sense of ease? Is there any certain part of your body that kind of lights up? And also noticing, how does your breath feel? Does it feel easy, soft? Is there a certain place that you can really feel it moving in your body? Just noticing what kind of energy is present in your body. How do you feel? Just scanning through your body as you're letting yourself soak in this memory. Letting the feelings fill you up and just taking stock, just being curious. Oh, how interesting, feeling this way. You can sort of take a mind-body screenshot, like really remember the imprint of this memory and how your body's feeling. And as you exhale, you can start to let that memory just fade away. Just let it go. Bring your awareness back to being in this space, in this room. Just kind of coming back to neutral. You don't have to force the feelings that your body was feeling away, but we're just letting go of the memory. And now I'm going to invite you to think of a situation or an experience that you face somewhat regularly in your day-to-day life that feels very demanding, that feels very challenging. Maybe it brings up some stress. Maybe this is a place of work. Maybe this is just some task that you have to do or somewhere that you have to be that feels very challenging, that you feel you do have to be very on for. Maybe you even feel some walls up. There's a certain role you have to play. There's certain expectations you have to fill, certain standards to meet. Maybe there's a deadline. So just pick an experience or a situation in your life that tends to bring some stress, tends to bring a feeling that, no, I'm not relaxed, I'm not chilling. I'm doing something. And again, I want you to imagine you are in that situation. Imagine you're in that space. It's something might feel very familiar. And I want you to, again, notice what happens in your body. What came online? What sensations are present? Did anything change in your body language or in how your muscles feel or your breath? As you think about a situation that feels stressful, that feels demanding and challenges you. And you're just noticing in your body, no judgment, again, just curiosity. See if you can really just notice if there's places that tensed up. How did the energy change in your body? Even in your own mind. Does your mind feel more alert? Maybe you've got some racing thoughts. Just noticing all of it. And on your next exhale, you can let go of that visualization. You can let go of that memory, that energy. We're just going to return back to our center. You are in your space. You're not in that situation. We'll close out with 3 more deep cleansing breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. When you're ready, you can start to open your eyes, come back into the space, and go ahead and take any movement you need. If you're like, ooh, you need to shake that off a little bit or stretch it all, you can just kind of wake yourself back up. Take a second. We'll reconnect for a moment. So, I'd love to hear from you all. If you noticed a difference in your body between those 2 experiences and what they were. Hopefully you were able to notice that there was a difference in what came online in your own body when you are in a space of chilling, no pressure, like no expectations, relaxed, and having to do shit. I'd love to hear from all of you, just to share a little bit about like what that experience was like for you. What did you notice in your body? What came up between the first one and the second one? Yeah. Abby, do you mind kicking us off?
Yeah. I definitely, for the first one, felt very full, but also light, like I was on a cloud. Like was able to let go of tension everywhere, that there's usually small areas of tension in places, and just feeling that go. But also not be totally like loosey-goosey relaxed, but like strong, stable, but also fluid and floating. So that was cool. And then when the prompt changed, it was like my pelvis kind of shifted and tensed, and then all of a sudden my knees weren't, I was laying down and my knees weren't as stable, and everything got almost kind of shaky because of tension that shifted. And yeah, I definitely, and then I noticed my breath was not as full either, and therefore I didn't feel that anymore. I felt a little shallower and more closed off in my breath and in my body. And even your mind, when you were talking about the mind side too, like could definitely feel like tension coming back in and kind of closed off a little bit. So yeah, it was interesting.
Totally. Yeah. Okay. Oh my gosh, thank you for sharing. Totally. Yeah, it's like, ooh, there's sort of this expanded but present feeling in the first one, like, ah. And then you could feel the contraction. Isn't that so interesting too, that even your postural structure of your body slightly changed, like your muscles shifted your pelvis or your knees, like, yeah, your body it's very interesting how the body reacts to that. Yeah, totally. Breathe. all of you, we're gonna like, woo. I know we just went into like, let's get into the space where you feel stressed, but like, if you need to while we're chatting, like wiggle or move or like, what, feel free to do that, to be like, it's okay, we're not in that space. Thanks, Abby. How about you, Hannah?
So the first one, well, overall, I've been dealing with a lot of like anxiety, and I feel it like in my chest. So my chest always feels like tight throughout the day. So like with the first one, it like I can feel my chest like loosen up, and my breathing got easier. And then I just felt more like I could just like let go. Like I hold a lot of tension in my shoulders and my chest, so it just felt like I could just let it be, just sit. And then the second one, I felt the tightness coming back in my chest and my shoulders tightening, felt my eyebrows like kind of like furrowing a little bit. So it's like very like upper body, like tightness, that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, totally. Again, it's so interesting. And it's going to be different for every person. Like, where is your patterning of tension, right? For a lot of people, it's like hips or shoulders, one or the other usually. But yeah, like, isn't that interesting? Like, whew, I kind of softened, and then we didn't go anywhere. Nothing changed. It was simply the body remembers. If you guys have ever heard that term, like the body keeps the score, like your body remembers, your body holds a lot of patterns just based on experiences in your life. Yeah, so Hannah, deep breaths. And snuggle your kitty and be like, we're not. Everything's okay.
No, sorry, he was so distracting. He's just all over me right now, and I'm like, sir, please.
I feel like, and it's so common whenever I hold like meditations or stuff, people's cats are always like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, I feel like they feel the energy change, and they're like, wow.
It was kind of cool because like during the first one, he was just like sitting in my lap, and I guess he felt calm. He could feel my calmness, so he was like, yes. And the second one, he was like, I don't like it, and he just like ran away.
Here, yeah, they feel it. I feel like they're especially like sensitive to that stuff, so it is really interesting. Thank you for sharing. How about you, Olivia?
I feel like the biggest change in the like
Having a little trouble hearing you, babe.
Is this better?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. So I feel like in the first situation, my heart felt like alive, if that makes sense. Like I felt like a little bit like warm energy in my chest. And like you know, like when you think of it, it makes you smile. But yeah, I just had more like excited, happy energy in my heart. And then in the second one, that kind of like faded a little bit. Like I felt really I even like instantly felt more tired.
More tired.
Yeah. And I also felt like my hip flexors like grip, which I wasn't really expecting, but yeah, I felt like online.
Totally. That's so as was like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, I mean it's super interesting. Again, like, yeah, hips, like, whoo, the body reacts. And it's most of the time when we're in that situation, whatever your guys' situations were, it's mostly experiencing it from a mental standpoint, right? And then when we drop in, we're like, wow, there's a lot going on in my body behind the scenes that I might not be super aware of that's happening. But until we start to pay attention, we're not quite aware that it's there.
I felt almost like a sinking and a shrinking at the same time.
Yeah, like totally super contracted energy. Yeah, that seems to be a theme. It's like the first one's like more expansive, like, and then that contraction. Totally. Yes. So, okay, well, thank you, Olivia. So, all right, we're gonna pull this PowerPoint back up. Y'all all just experienced a couple different states of your nervous system. So I want to introduce you guys to what's known as Polyvagal Theory, essentially different states of the nervous system. So when I'm talking about your nervous system and what we're talking about today, I'm talking about your autonomic nervous system. So we have our central nervous system, which is the part that's our brain, and our spinal cord, kind of that central line, like the main head of things, literally. And then we have our peripheral nervous system, which is all the nervous system that comes out from our spinal cord and goes out through the rest of our body, attaches to all of our muscles, all of our organs, everything else. And within that peripheral nervous system is something called our autonomic nervous system. And this deals with all things that we don't have to think about to do. This is the part of you that is making your heart beat. Like, you don't have to consciously think, all right, heart, like, let's pump again. You don't have to consciously think about having to digest your food or taking a breath, right? It handles all the things that you're not thinking about. It's your digestive system, your immune system, your endocrine hormone system, all the functions of your body that keep you in balance, that keep you alive, all the things that our body is constantly doing and taking care of and monitoring at all times has to do with your autonomic nervous system. And so this autonomic nervous system is a huge part of your survival, right? Like, it has everything to do with keeping you alive. Its main job is like, keep this bitch alive at all costs. And that has to do with, obviously making sure everything's functioning in our body correctly, but it also has to do with how we are interacting with life. So this is the part of you and the part that's connected with your subconscious mind that's constantly scanning and making sense of all the information and the stimulation that your brain is taking in, and determining whether we are safe and chilling and we can relax, or we are not safe and we need to do something about it and either do something, or maybe, it's this typical, like, do we fight, do we flight, do we freeze, do we shut down, like these kind of survival responses. Your autonomic nervous system is in charge of that. It is in charge of the knee-jerk decisions that you don't even think about, that you make when you are usually faced with a challenge. Like, if you were actually to have a bear come at you through the forest, depending on where your nervous system was at, you might either try and fight it and like, whoa, like you wouldn't even think about it. You would just be like, wow. Or you might just start running. Or you might freeze, which is kind of that play dead thing. Like, these are millions of years in the evolutionary, like animals we've evolved with this system to survive. So might either like play dead, freeze, run away, or try and fight. But in our modern day, very domesticated human life, we're not typically like battling bears anymore, on our day-to-day basis. We usually don't have to deal with like actual life-threatening situations. But our nervous system doesn't know the difference between like having to fight a bear and like your boss being an asshole and like being like, we need those emails on the deadline, blah, blah. It doesn't know the difference. So basically, let me take you through the different states of the nervous system, the different ways that it operates, and how these show up in our life, because this system is operating constantly in every moment, in every day-to-day situation in our life. So polyvagal theory is just that there are three different states of the nervous system that we're constantly moving in and out through based on whether or not our brain and our subconscious mind is saying we're safe or we are threatened, right? So when we're feeling safe, this was the first one y'all just experienced. This is called our ventral vagal state. This is when we are chilling. This is like where we want to be, right? Like that expanded, present, we can breathe deeper. This is when we're in our social engagement, like kind of phase where it's like, I'm grounded. I can actually like make eye contact with this person. Like my heart is open. There you can connect, right? Like there's joy. You're in the present moment. You're in your body. You're more mindful. You're more aware. You can actually access like empathy and compassion, just curiosity and openness. You're like, you're very here. You're very grounded. There's a calm, centered energy to it. And you all just felt that in our very first one. This is when you're, right? Because I was like, pick a place that you feel really safe in, that you can let your walls down, you can let your guard down, you were mad chilling, like you're feeling good. That's your ventral vagal state, right? Like you could feel the physiological shift in your body. You breathe deeper, your body relaxes, your muscles relax. This is also the state that's known as the rest and digest state, or your parasympathetic nervous system too. So this is when your body is also in repair mode. Like this is when it's kind of going around. This is when you are digesting your food. This is when your immune system is at its peak and can really like, fight off illness. This is when your muscles are recovering from dancing or a hard workout. This is when like your body is functioning at its prime. It's like all of your energy can go towards repair and rest and recovery and things functioning on high, because there's no energy that needs to be diverted away into like survival responses, right? So this is like where we want to be. Like ideally in an amazing world, this is like where we want to operate from most of the time. But there's some other states when we're not in that space. So in your daily life, when you face some kind of stressor, now this can just be small, from just like the demands of life all the way to, maybe having to like run for your life, or like getting in a car accident or something that's like very stressful. But let's say this is just small day-to-day things of having a busy plate, having a lot going on, maybe a job that's kind of stressful where you're juggling a lot of things, or just the daily stresses of life. When you face stressors, your body's first response to those, your nervous system's first response, is to take off what's known as your vagal brake, kind of like taking your foot off of the brake that's keeping you in a more, like here you're in a very slow, like everything's slow, there's no sense of like urgency, right? So it's taking that brake off to let more energy into your system. We start to move into this sympathetic space, okay? So this vagal brake comes off to allow energy to come into your system, right? So this allows your physiology to speed up so you can meet whatever challenge you're facing with focus, with endurance. Usually when we start to shift into a sympathetic state, this is when energy is diverted away from things like digestion and muscle repair to things like sending blood to your muscles so that you can mobilize and activate in case you need to fight something or run away or whatever. This is when just things are moving and changing in your body. You start to get, your hormones are going to change. You're going to get a spike of cortisol, which is very like, and adrenaline, which is very awakening and activating, right? So this isn't necessarily bad at first. Like this is your body helping you meet the challenges of life as we take this vagal brake off. And this starts to awaken this mobilizing energy in your sympathetic nervous system. It's often called your fight or flight because these are mobilizing. We're either moving away or moving towards something. But this is the same energy that you use for play or that motivated like feeling, passion, heavy physical activity like dance or working out. Standing up for yourself. Maybe you need to like a little bit of inner fire to like set a boundary or like speak your truth or something. Getting shit done, right? Like this is the energy that either helps you move away or move towards. It's mobilizing. It is there to help you meet the demands of whatever is challenging you in your life. It gives you the energy and the resources to work towards your goals, and that inner fire to do things, especially if they're outside your comfort zone. It's kind of that like raw, like let's just do it. Like it's kind of that like fuck it, let's go energy, right? Like it's mobilizing, it moves you. It's more fiery, right? Than when we're just like chilling, relaxed. You guys following me so far? Heck yeah. Where am I? I've got a little note here. So what I really want you to understand, even though here it looks like, sympathetic activation, we just go right into like frustration, irritation, anger, rage, or like panic, anxiety, and fear. It doesn't always just escalate straight to that. Like the sympathetic activation isn't an inherently bad thing that we're wanting to just like avoid at all costs, okay? There's a lot of talk of like stress is bad for you, right? And like that hormone cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and like adrenaline in your system. But what's key to understand is it's chronic stress that is bad for you. Our bodies actually have this already built-in capacity to deal with the stressors of life and then fully recover from them, so that this daily sympathetic activation doesn't cause harm. Like that's what our vagal brake is for. If you think of your body having this like either hit the gas or hit the brakes, when our sympathetic nervous system is activated, we're hitting the gas. We need energy to move, to do something, right? That's going to help us out. And then to meet a demand, to do some work that we need to do, or to do a hard dance class and have the energy to like push through the burn, or like push through the burn of a workout. Like I said, it's the thing that's helping you like focus in and like do the hard thing, whatever that may be. But then we have our vagal brake, which then can again hit the brakes so that we can kind of return back to our baseline, back to chilling, like, all right, got that done, and discharges that mobilizing energy, because that mobilizing energy does like, like it's a more activated energy in your body. But we have the vagal brake, which is essentially your nervous system being able to drop back down into this ventral vagal state and discharge that energy and fully recover and process those stress hormones out and bring you back to like reset, like we're good. But when our vagal brake isn't functioning properly, and your nervous system's ability to smoothly transition from sympathetic back into your ventral vagal, when that's not working, that's when the chronic stress starts to set in. That's when stress starts to be the thing that depletes our energy and resources and starts to reduce what's known as our vagal tone. Okay, so this is essentially like our ability to handle stressful things, handle challenges in life without getting totally like overwhelmed, getting totally stressed, feeling total anxiety. Like the more vagal tone that you have, or you can also think of this as your window of tolerance, the wider your window of tolerance, the more resilient your system is, and the better your system is at being able to get into a sympathetic state and handle a challenge, when challenging shit comes up in life, without totally falling into like anxiety or like panic or rage or getting totally overwhelmed and then being able to drop back down. It's like the wider your window of tolerance and the better your vagal tone, the more resilient your nervous system is to handle the challenging things, and they feel like more like smaller things. They're not going to just totally deplete you. But when our system starts to have a hard time, like when our brakes start to go, push on the brakes and there's like nothing happening, like in an old car, that's when we start to get into trouble. That's when we have low vagal tone. If you have a smaller window of tolerance, the small things are going to start to feel like the big things, and we're going to be less able to do what our body is built to do, to drop back down into this this ventral vagal state. So essentially what starts to happen is you can start to get this backlog of daily stressors that haven't been properly like processed in your system. And that's what starts to really tax your body and tax your nervous system. And then if you experience any like really traumatic, stressful experiences on that, where you're like really overwhelmed with stress and the sympathetic arousal, then it makes it even harder to get that reset and recover. So why does this happen? Why does our nervous system start to not be able to move in and out of these zones so easily, right? Because we're naturally built to be able to go into this, do what we got to do the hard things, and then naturally like process through that stress and come back to like an equilibrium and not just be stuck in stress once we have one stressful thing. Like, why does this happen? Well, part of it is because of the world we live in. It's so fast paced and we are so overstimulated. We constantly have a screen, we constantly have things. There's capitalism that demands so freaking much, and there's such a sense of urgency with everything we do. There's no space for our system to do its natural process of moving in and out of these. So this can happen when you, even like, let's say you dance a lot, which I know all of you do, and you don't do a cool down. When you are dancing, when you are in the studio or you're doing a workout, you are spiking your nervous system up to be able to meet the demands of the challenges you're putting on your body. You are moving into the sympathetic state. And so many dancers don't have anything after class that helps bring their body back down into this ventral vagal state. Like, how many of you have been guilty of just like, all right, dance class is over, all right, just go, but get back into your car immediately, like get on your phone, like on to the next thing, like, you know? Yeah. I mean, I've been guilty of it too. Like, it's just not a part of the dance culture to be like, we're gonna actually like cool down. Which part of it is, yes, for your muscles, but part of it is to help bring your body back down into, okay, like doing some stretching, doing some breathing, doing something that physiologically helps your body drop back down into it. No, we get in the car, we start going on the phone, which increases our cortisol. We get into traffic, and then we're like battling traffic, which is sympathetic activation. And then maybe we get home and we start to do like other work stuff that we have to do, or maybe we like reach for going on Netflix, or we have other stresses, and it's just a constant non-stop being in this sympathetic place, and your body never gets the message that it's okay to drop back down into this. We sort of get stuck in this place where your body is always operating in this, always on. This can also show up if you just especially if like for anyone who works from home and you're doing work at home, you're like working, you're doing your thing. Like, it's just, you know, you're meeting stressors, you're meeting demands of life, and then you don't do anything to like clock out. Like, there's nothing that tells your body like, okay, we're not at work anymore, because you work from home, right? Like, it's all the same to your body. It doesn't know the difference between we're in work mode and like we're home and chilling, if you don't do something to help your body recognize that it can, we are over and through that, we're done with it. This can show up in, if you're someone who has a lot of anxiety and, you know, let's say you get home from the day and you are replaying conversations you had with people in your head. You're like, did I say the right thing? Did I come off weird? Did I do the right thing? Oh my gosh, like this thing I posted on Instagram, do people like it? Do people think I'm weird? Like, did I do okay? You know, like, you know, even like a dance class, like thinking about, did you do it good? Is it right? Was it wrong? Like, did you do good? Like, if you live with a feeling of like, it's hypervigilance, it's your system scanning and like going back through everything, scanning for potential threats, right? Like things that it perceives as like life-threatening. Because that's what our system is doing in this world that we live in now. Like, it's the modern threats that we face have a lot more to do with social experiences now than actual, like, are we going to survive like this mountain lion attack, before, when we were living more like in nature and those were the threats. Now our threats are more social. They have much more to do with like our experience with screens, experience with work, money, all of these things. So it's like, those are the things that your system is now perceiving as the threats. So we start to get stuck when we don't have anything that's bringing us back down. So for me, and why I got stuck in this sympathetic activation was because I was constantly on. Okay, that feeling that y'all felt that in the meditation, there's like yes, it feels contracted and like it's kind of tightening and heavy, but there's also like an on, right? Like whatever that situation that you guys are in that's feeling stressful, like your body's not relaxed, it's on, it's alert. There's a hypervigilance. There's maybe it's a role that you have to play. Like maybe it's work and you have to do the customer service role and like deal with people and it's stressful and you're playing this role. Something is activated. For me, that was having to be on Zoom sales calls with people all day for this other job I was working at, and then having to do more work and then go to a dance class and, just constantly on, and I didn't have any space to switch off. And I was in this constant state of being in my sympathetic activation, constantly like activated, right? With not enough time or space to drop myself back down into my ventral vagal. So far, is this making sense? Does anyone have any questions so far? Cool. I'm gonna just keep going, bring the full picture around. So we got to bring this boy into the picture now too. So all of these things combined, like in your day-to-day life habits, spending a lot of time on the phone, being in traffic, having constant demands that you're meeting. And this can also be increased too, depending on, we don't have a ton of time to get into this today. This is something that we really explore in like Yoga for Dance Academy, but really understanding what's going on in your subconscious mind as well, because even your window of tolerance and your vagal tone and your nervous system's ability to be resilient and not perceive every little thing as a threat, that's going to be different for everyone based on our past, based on what kind of trauma, what kind of environment you had growing up, what you have learned, what your body has learned to perceive, like this is safe and this is not. When I act this way, I get love and approval and safety. When I do this, I don't. When, we get these conditioned patterns imprinted into our brain based on two things, either repetition or intensity. Okay, so our body and our brain and our nervous system is constantly learning what is safe and what is not safe and how to be safe in this world. Like I said, bringing it back, it's the number one function of this autonomic nervous system is to keep you safe. So that even has to do with like how we perceive certain social situations or how we perceive money situations, how we perceive, all the little things of like, do we let the little things feel like really big things, or are we unbothered by things? Like that's going to be different for everyone based upon what's going on in your subconscious mind as well. That's going to determine how big your window of tolerance is or how small it is. But when we have a low vagal tone, when we have a smaller window of tolerance, when we have less capability in our nervous system to meet stressors and recover from them really easily, the small things can start to feel like big things for your system and really start to push your capacity, right? Like when you've just had one of those days where it's just like one thing after another and you're like, I cannot fucking handle one more thing or I'm gonna have a fucking mental breakdown. Yeah, that's where your nervous system's, that's like your nervous system, right? We start to be more prone to anxiety, agitation. If we're spending too much time here, this is where we start to move up in activation, we start to get into that kind of irritable, more agitated, frustrated, anxiety, worry and concern, fear, or anger, or could even escalate to like panic and rage, right? Like going up in intensity, racing thoughts, or overwhelm when dealing with challenges. And once you've exhausted this sympathetic energy, you start to crash and burn. You start to experience hypoarousal of your nervous system, or dorsal vagal shutdown. So the body, it's so interesting how it does this. It has our sympathetic activation to help us survive hard things. But when we get stuck here, when this starts to become our norm, when we start to live in a way where we just have like low grade anxiety just running in the background all the time, when we never feel that we can truly like, when this starts to become our norm instead of this, that's not healthy, right? Like that's where it starts to take a really bad toll on your body, having that chronic like cortisol pumping through your system. So our body, our nervous system does this really interesting thing in an act of self like preservation to get you out of it when it's like, oh my God, this is too much, and it goes into the opposite. It just shuts everything down and puts you into freeze, into collapse. So this would be, if you want to think about it this way, in the wild, let's say an animal, let's say there's like a deer running away from a lion, and at first its system detects the threat, goes into flight, starts to move away. Its whole system gets shot with all these chemicals. It gets activated a certain way to run for its fucking life. But let's say it gets caught, right? The lion catches up to the deer, and its system is overwhelmed with like sympathetic stress hormones, right? But it can't flight anymore. There's nowhere else for it to go. It's got caught. And what the system does in sort of an act of like, it's so fascinating. It's like mercy that your system gives to you. It puts your body into freeze, into playing dead. Why? How many animals survive by playing dead? Because their system, they're not thinking about it. Their system just has them collapse into freeze, which does one of two things. It either they play dead and they're able to survive, or freeze also has this numbing effect. And maybe if you guys have ever experienced like burnout, when you're really in like a numbed, it's like it can feel very numbing. It's sort of like this numbing sleep potion, which like makes the death of the animal less painful for it. So that's like in the wild, like a very extreme case of like what happens, but this is mirrored in our own system. When we have gone past the point of fight and flight being helpful, when we have like burned through all that energy, and it's been overwhelming, our system goes the opposite. It's like shut it all down, like collapse, freeze. And it freezes you up. It puts you into what's called dorsal vagal shutdown. And this is when, if you've ever felt so stressed that all of a sudden you're just like, I don't even care. I don't even fucking care what happens anymore. Or if when you're really stressed, you ever experience dissociation, where you have this like out of body experience where you're not quite there. You're not quite in your body. A feeling of like helplessness or apathy, where you just kind of give up. You're like, I can't even anymore. That is like, have you all like ever experienced that, where you're like, I'm so stressed, I just like, you almost go the opposite. You're like, I'm done, I don't fucking care. And then like you just get in bed and you like want to crawl away and like hide from it all, just wait out the storm. Yeah, okay. So that's what's happening in your nervous system, your body going into freeze. It's been mobilizing. All of a sudden it immobilizes. At this point, your vagal brake and your stress recovery process has stopped working properly, like entirely. And your nervous system has become completely dysregulated. Like this is kind of like a last resort self-preservation, just like shut down shot, just like freeze and wait for the storm to pass kind of, and like I'm not numb your way through the storm. And this is when the burnout sets in. This is when you are in freeze, you are in burnout. Like they are the same thing, when you just totally shut down because you've literally burned yourself out in this more fiery, mobilizing, like stress activation. And this is when it starts to become really difficult to like muster the effort to cope with life's demands. You may find it really hard to think clearly about the future or make plans. Physiologically, you're going to feel numb and exhausted. You may experience, a sense of like apathy, right? Like you're just like emotional numbness where you're like, I'm just numb. I don't even care. There's just like everything gets really dulled. There can be forgetfulness, fogginess. You might be in class dancing and you're just like, I can't even remember this choreography. Like I just like brain fog, stuff like that. You might just feel chronically fatigued. Like there's just no amount of like sleep or coffee that can like fucking help you feel energized. Might like feel a huge lack of accomplishment, like you just can't do everything's super hard, and even if you do something, like it's not satisfying. Kind of loss of libido. You feel extreme procrastination, right? Like everything's just so hard. You might also experience like withdrawing from people, right? Like if this is our social engagement where we're like wanting to engage with other people, you might really kind of withdraw and feel isolated and like not want to be around people. Like feeling isolated, feeling hopeless and helpless about challenges, and have more of like a negative, cynical look on life. Like your mindset can really get fucked up here. Everything just feels hard. It feels impossible. Burnout and depression can really look like the same thing too in your system. Physically, you might experience like dizziness or gut health issues. Immune function goes way down. You might have migraines, again, numbness in your body. That can lead to more like aches and pains and stiffness. Even in this kind of stress, we become more sensitive to pain. We become more tense. There is like that contracted, just like freeze, like we really lose a lot of our energy. And it sucks because it's not something you can like willpower your way out of. Like no matter how determined you are, or how much willpower you have, like these changes in your physiology make it really hard to accomplish the things that you want to do. And overall, you just feel like shit. You're just like, whoa. But unfortunately, a lot of people make it worse for themselves by blaming themselves, or their life, feeling, if you don't have this understanding of like what's going on in your nervous system, and all of a sudden you just feel like burnt out, you're like, I just like feel all these things, you might start to take it personally and be like, this is a personal failure of like me as a human, right? Like I'm not good enough, I'm lazy, right, you know what I mean? Without knowing that, like, no, it's not you, like it's your nervous system. You have gone into dorsal vagal shutdown because over time the sympathetic activation just built up over and over without being able to have enough of this, just like takes a toll on your body. Yeah, so just to recap, we've got our ventral vagal state. And then when we're facing challenges of life, when we're facing any kind of stressor, we move into sympathetic to try and face them. We are built to be able to face challenges and drop back down, but because of how overstimulating our world is, how busy all of our schedules can be, how culturally we don't have a built-in, like, it's just not a part of our culture to like create the space and to have the rituals to help our body like get, have that strong like vagal brake that's able to like hit the brakes on the stress. So many people are operating in this state. Like you can still move through life because we have to, and you like have to keep going, but it's really fucking hard. It's real hard. It's exhausting. It's like fighting your physiology when your body and your nervous system is literally trying to get you to just like play dead because it has no more energy left to give, and your nervous system is just completely dysregulated. So this is how burnout happens. This is essentially the pathway that burnout takes. If we go too far past this, we go into freeze. And now the trick is thawing out that freeze and helping your body physiologically get back into this state. But this isn't something you can do from your mind. It has to be a physical experience. So healing and burnout, helping your mind and body experience that ventral vagal state, right? Like getting back into that is by, if you're in burnout, you need to cultivate a felt sense, like actually in your bones, in your body, a felt sense of safety. Because burnout happens when your body hasn't felt safe for a long time. And you might not consciously be aware that your body doesn't feel safe. Maybe it's become so normalized that like having some background low grade like anxiety just and feeling kind of hypervigilant constantly just has felt like your norm. Maybe that's going to add up over time. Maybe it's like I said, it's like being in a state of having alarms, like fire alarms blaring when there's no fire or smoke. Like that's what's happening and what's getting people stuck in that sympathetic. It's like your body hasn't realized that there is no threat and you can drop back down in. And so you can't think yourself into safety. You can't think yourself out of burnout. Your nervous system is a 500 million year old system. It doesn't speak English. It speaks body language. So that's where we need to start. I also want to just check in and see if anyone has any questions, or if have you experienced that place of burnout where you're just like, I fucking literally cannot will myself to like do this. I am so exhausted, depleted. Even a lot of times what we think is depression is actually burnout. So if you've ever dealt with that too, it's likely that had a huge role to play in that situation. No questions. Is this making sense? Because I know this is a lot of perhaps new information about the nervous system and what's going on, but we kind of felt it in that, especially the second prompt in the meditation. For some of you, did that feeling feel familiar? Was it like, oh yeah, I feel this a lot in my day-to-day life, like I'm in this place of stress a lot? Yeah. When that is our norm and the first one isn't, that's the path that could lead to burnout. When that state of like always being on, being active, that hypervigilance, that constant mobilization in your body, that your body's always thinks it always has to be ready to face challenges or face like perceived threats, that's where we can get stuck. When that starts to become our norm and we can't switch back into the first one. But here's how you can start to switch back into that, because you can train your nervous system to have more flexibility. Like the problem is that we get stuck. It gets stuck and then we get rigid and our nervous system loses its innate ability to shift back in. Because like I said before, the problem isn't the sympathetic activation. It's that our nervous system loses its fluidity, its adaptability to flow easily in and out of that state, right? And then we get into like emergency burnout freeze zone because we've lost our ability to flow in and out of these states too. This happens a lot too because even culturally, like we're not very good at actually feeling our emotions and actually physically processing our emotions. A lot of times we're thinking our emotions rather than feeling them, and that can also add to that. Like your body holds emotions. It's a physical experience, as you guys experienced in that meditation. Like when you're happy, you're chilling, like your body feels differently. When you're stressed and agitated, your body feels differently. It holds things. Anytime that you don't give yourself space to physically like feel and connect in with emotions that you have, anger, sadness, heartache, any of those tough emotions, shame, like all of these things that oftentimes we don't actually give ourselves space to turn towards those emotions and feel them physically. Olivia, you know, girl, this is a huge part of YDA, is like learning how to actually truly actually feel your emotions and like move them out of your body and not just have them be sitting in there. And it takes a lot of courage. I don't know, Olivia, if you would want to like speak to that, because I know like I know I'm like totally putting you on the spot, but like a big thing for you was like just being able to like sit and feel your emotions without judgment and actually like build the capacity to like feel them in your body without becoming like overwhelmed. And that was such a huge, awesome thing for you. I don't know if you have any words you would like to share on your like experience with the process of like learning to physically feel your emotions at all. I don't know, not to put you on the spot, but
No, it's okay. I mean, I think like it's so interesting that that was such a huge part of YDA for me, because I never really thought that was an issue of mine. Like, I feel like I've always been really emotionally aware, and I have been, but it's like a mental awareness. Like, I would try to think my way through and out of emotions, and like, sure, I would attach feeling to them, but like in an emotional sense, like how certain thoughts would make me feel sad or whatever. But when it comes to like how I felt sad and how that sadness felt, like I didn't really, there was like a wall there. I didn't really go past that. I was just like, all right, on to the next thing, to not feel sad anymore. But like actually sitting and like leaving room to observe how it feels and not how I think it feels was really interesting and really hard at first, because like I just judge myself a lot, and like I would have a lot of thoughts of just like trying to get negative feelings like away instead of like processing them. But once I did, like, that was a much better and more direct process to feel better, like, because you can only like think your way or like shove down certain things to a certain point. Like, you might think you're feeling fine, but like it's gonna come back unless you actually give it some space to like exist without analyzing it, if that makes, I feel like that did not make any sense.
Oh, no, that makes perfect sense. I mean, yeah, we're really good at thinking our way through our feelings. And a lot of times that can also lead to just like a lot of like feelings that people struggle with when they're not feeling regulated in their nervous system, is feeling like disconnected to their body. And part of that is like we shut away from our feeling our emotions physically and actually like letting us like move through and feel the sadness, or like mobilize and physicalize like the rage or whatever we're feeling. We just like are so domesticated, we're just like, all right, just keep it all in a nice little like package here and like suppress. Or, you know, we have a lot of shame around our emotions, feel like we have to just deal with them on our own and don't know how to healthily like process through these intense energetic charges that are moving through our body. And that can also lead to burnout and just your body and nervous system holding so much unprocessed shit and like getting this backlog of emotions and stress that we haven't properly dealt with. Like when we've had stressful situations, when we've had a stressful day, this is something that I had to learn to do, is like come home and physically process that stress and like actually do things like moving and being like, I'm like letting my body like actually move that shit out, rather than being like, okay, that was a fucking shitty day, let me just go scroll on Instagram, you know, or like go get drunk or whatever, like or watch Netflix, or like all the typical like relaxing activities that like culturally we are, you know, kind of given. But to actually like move them through my body so that my body can be a clear vessel that's not holding lingering backlogged energy, is a serious life skill to be able to move that out. But yeah, thank you, Olivia, for sharing. Totally. Like, it's, as you said, it's such a more direct way to feel better, to actually learn how to like physically be with your feelings, rather than just trying to think your way through, which is really just like suppressing them more into physiology, which your body remembers. It holds it until you're ready to process it. And yeah, it never goes away unless you truly like get it out of your system, which requires embodiment. That
Right. And like I feel like I'm typically someone who would either like talk it out or cry it out, and like those have similar effects, but like sometimes you need something different like to process, instead of like, because I feel like when you're talking to someone, there still might be that, I mean, depending on who they are, like that layer of social anxiety and hypervigilance of like, what can I say to this person? Or like, yeah, I don't know, like there's something more profound about you being the one to experience it. And also like, I feel like you were just touching on it, like kind of almost making things worse on purpose, like with your body taking the stress and amplifying it. Like I know we did that a lot in our one-on-ones, but just like pushing the uncomfortable, because then like it sucks for a second, and then you're like, wait, okay, it's like gone now, like I can release it because I felt the extent of it.
Totally. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So many of what she's talking about is in a lot of our like one-on-one sessions, we'll like actually bring up the feeling, like, what is it that's fucking bothering you? What's stressing you out up here? And then we'll be like, okay, how is that actually feeling in your body? And then it's kind of like, whoa, actually, this feels fucking uncomfortable. No wonder I've like kind of kept it up here. Like, this is not physically comfortable to feel the anxiety or the stress or the sadness or the anger or whatever it is. But like broadening your capacity to actually like sit with that feeling, breathe through it. And then there's a lot you can do to like help it move out through your body actually once and for all, and like actually clear it from your system, rather than just being like, shut off from it. Totally. Yeah. You have to get a little uncomfy sometimes. So here's some things that can help you like do that actually, like physically. What's going to help take your nervous system out of that sympathetic activation back into the ventral vagal is doing physical things. So grounding, embodiment, and somatic healing practices that incorporate movement, breath work, you know, body scanning, that skill that we were using at the beginning, which is called interoception, which is getting really good at feeling how your emotions feel physically in your body. Those are the things that change your physiology. So this can look like just dancing around your room, putting on like music and just like just free ball and dancing. This is yoga. This is breath work and meditation. This is anything that is grounding, embodiment work, somatic healing practices are going to be the things that like drop you. It teaches your body that it's safe. It helps your brain connect to your body in a way that it registers, oh, there's no threat. There's no need to have the alarm bells blaring anymore. We can drop in. Things like, yeah, movement is the biggest one. Even just the practice of, if you come home after a long day, literally just getting in a space and like just moving organically, because your body knows how it wants to move its energy. Your body knows exactly what you need to do. But you just need to not go home and like sit on your couch and be like, fuck, that was a fucking exhausting day. Like you need to like breathe and move. I have there's just so many exercises and things. I can't share them all, but like if you go on my YouTube channel, there's so many different breathwork practices, so many shorter movement classes or longer movement classes that are all really designed for nervous system care. So I can send you all like a specific list of like really nervous system driven ones after this, so that you can start to just incorporate them more into your life, because that will really strengthen your vagal tone. That will really strengthen your window of tolerance. And learning to work with your vagus nerve. This is a lot of things like vagal. I've been thrown around vagal this, vagal that. It's all because it has to do with your vagus nerve, which is known as your nerve superhighway. Okay, this is a big boy right here. We want to remember this guy. This is your bestie. Like your vagus nerve is your 10th cranial nerve, and it's the longest nerve in your whole body. As you can see, it travels down this pathway. It's called your superhighway. It's also really connected with your digestive system, which we're not going to get into that now. I have a whole other workshop that I can send you guys as well that deals with digestive health and your nervous system. But it's very entwined in that, because we have an entire second brain in our gut, actually. And this is the pathway between the two of them. But this nerve has the most influence on what state your nervous system is in, all right? Depending if you are in ventral vagal, if you are in sympathetic, or if you're in dorsal, this guy is controlling that, okay? So if you have high vagal tone, that means your window of tolerance is wide, and you're widening your window of tolerance. And that's going to increase your nervous system's ability to be regulated. This guy is going to be the one that helps you do that in a more like diverse range of experiences, because the goal of doing nervous system work and nervous system practices is to have your system be resilient in a wide range of experiences, of being able to meet the demands of whatever life is throwing at you without fully going all the way blown into the real fight or flight, but being able to go into it and then drop back down and go in and move in and out, have that flexibility in your nervous system. So this guy, one way that you can work with this boy is doing anything that vibrates it and working with your throat chakra, because this nerve goes right past your vocal cords. So even doing something like, let's say you get off of work and you get in your car, and before you go home and continue on with your day, you want to sit and do what I like to call bumblebee breath, which is essentially oming with your mouth closed. So I want to like practice this a few times with you guys, because this is one of my favorites. It's such a good one. It's like gonna soothe your whole system. It's a good thing to just have in your back pocket to do anytime you're like, I'm fucking maxed, I'm exhausted, I'm stressed. This will really like change and shift your state, because it vibrates the nerve in a specific way that it'll tell the rest of your body, okay, shift into our our parasympathetic states, we're relaxed. So what this is we're going to inhale, and you're going to exhale, and you're going to, as if you're going to but you're going to keep your mouth closed. So it's just going to be a sounds like a little bumblebee buzzing. Okay. Let's do 5 rounds of this, and I just to give you guys the experience to feel it. You can close your eyes for this too if you like. Inhale. Then you can let your breath be normal. Just taking a moment to see how your body felt with that. How did that feel? You guys can give a thumbs up if that felt good for your system. Yeah, that's a really nice one to do. One of my favorite ways to use that breath, if you really want to treat your nervous system well, is to lie down on your back. And let's say you were in a twist. Oh, I'm gonna try not to flash you guys. A twist in yoga. Inhaling, bringing your arm across on the inhale. And on the exhale, taking the full length of moving your arm into that twist to do the exhale. And then inhale, and then across. And doing that like 5 times on each side, you are going to be feeling groovy. You are going to be feeling very relaxed and very good. That's a nice one to do like before bed too. You can just lie in bed, take a twist, do 5, switch to the other side, do 5. And then another really good thing to do is to do legs up the wall pose. You guys familiar with that? With your leg? That's also a really good one for your vagus nerve, because anytime we're in any type of inversion in yoga, this is, legs up the wall pose, this is shoulder stand, this is even downward dog. Anywhere that your hips or your legs are above your heart and your head, are going to stimulate your vagus nerve, because it's going to put a gentle pressure on the nerve here when we reverse that flow of gravity. The legs up the wall one is especially good. The way it really reverses the flow of gravity, it puts almost like a pressure point, like a reflexology pressure on your vagus nerve here, which sends signals throughout the rest of your body to relax and shift into that rest, digest, recover, chill, and relaxed state. So those are a couple little hacks that you can use, like even after a dance class. Abby girl, I know your feet be tired after those point shoes. Like do legs up the wall pose for a few minutes. Same for you, Olivia, take off your point shoes, and same for you, Hannah, you and I, when we're done with our heels, like doing some legs up the wall pose to let our feet have a little break and give our nervous system a little reset through our vagus nerve is a really great way to help your body drop down. But the biggest thing in your overall lifestyle that's gonna like really set you up to just have more energy throughout your day, like really feel like you can have a full day and do a lot and like have energy throughout it and feel good and not just like frantic or anxious, or you're just pushing through and trying to survive, is restoring your vagal brake, right? That's the thing that's going to help you downgrade, shift down into your relaxed state. And I like to call this, finding your off switch. So the most important thing in healing and preventing future burnout is restoring your body's ability to recover from the stress and drop back down into our calm, equilibrium, regulated state. So nervous system regulation practices like aren't just to help you relax, they're to help your nervous system become more resilient and more better able to move between these states fluidly, right? So here's what this can look like. Cultivating your off switch ritual. So this is going to be different for every person. You can really make it your own, but it's essentially giving closure to your nervous system anytime you're done dealing with a stressful thing. So this is, after it's like telling your body to clock out. It's like, all right, we're clocking out of whatever demands or challenges we've been dealing with this day. So maybe this is after you get home from working, doing something like before you get into having dinner or whatever else you're doing, do 10 minutes of like stretching or 10 minutes of breath work or meditation or just dancing around, something that's, again, connected to your body embodiment, like doing something that's going to, like some sort of physical practice. A couple of things you can do, like, is create what I like to call like a second morning routine. So sort of this would be a great thing to do like after you get off of work, or let's say you were doing something and you get home in like you're done with that in like the middle of the day. I've had a lot of dancers. The reason I came up with this is like having clients who are like, I have a job where I get off at like 3 p.m. but then like, oh, I just feel spent, and then like I have the rest of my day, but I usually don't end up like doing anything worthwhile with it because like I get home and then I eat food and then I lay on my couch and then like I lose my momentum and then like the day kind of just passes and I don't feel like that fulfilled, like I didn't really use it. I just feel kind of like blah and spacey after like getting home from work or something during the day. Like create something, and then when you get home is going to like reset, refresh, get you refocused, almost like if you have a morning routine in the morning where you like meditate or do something to like set your intention, kind of connect with yourself before going out in the day. I mean, that's one way to set yourself up to have a good day, but then do it later too, whenever like when I had a job working in retail before I started my own business, I would have to do this to, when I got home from my work, come home, do a second morning routine that would give me a boost of energy and drop me back down into like a regulated state to then work on building my business. Whereas I might not have had the energy and the focus and like the kind of refreshed energy if I had just gotten home and kind of just like, like not ever given my system closure of like, all right, we're done with that work shift. Come home, meditate, do some breath work, do some stretching or some movement. Again, something that's going to get you into your body, relax your system, creating something you can do. Does that feel like, I don't know what y'all's schedules are, but think of it just like maybe like your afternoon, like reset routine, your second morning routine, whatever helps you think about like, okay, it's in the transitional spaces between one thing to the next of whatever we've got on our plate is where we really want to take time to help our body hit the reset button, so that we're not just like one thing to the next, go, where our system is just like, whoa. That's where we're going to feel drained and depleted. So it's like the transitional spaces from our one activity to the next is really, really important for your system to maintain a nice energy throughout the day. So all your energy isn't just going towards being in that sympathetic on activated state. Don't skip your cool downs, y'all. I have a 15-minute cool down video on YouTube if you need, or literally like 5 to 10 minutes. Don't just rush off to your car to the next thing. I know it's hard when like sometimes we have one thing after the next, but even just 5 minutes after class to like stretch, breathe, let your heart rate come down, drink some water, like, something that is going to like calm you down before you get on with the rest of your day. 5 minutes at the minimum, like, is going to do so much because you've just spiked your system up and gotten yourself fully into like that sympathetic state to do the dancing, you need to like bring yourself back down. In Yoga for Dance Academy, like so many of the classes I structure them in a way that the first 30 minutes, we are going hard, we are working out, we are pushing our bodies, and then we take 30 minutes to like cool down and stretch and like bring ourselves back down so that by the end you feel that nice combo of like energized, but like calm and relaxed and like open. Cool downs are really, really important. I wish in dance culture we made time for them, just like we made time for them we make time for warm-ups, but you have to take self-responsibility here. It'll really do so much for giving you energy to go on with whatever you got to do the rest of your day. And it's a great time to stretch as well and like work on your flexibility when you're good and warm. So don't skip your cool downs. It's really important for your nervous system. A small thing too is to make a habit of celebrating your accomplishments. A lot of times when we have a big to-do list, when we've got a lot on our plate, we're going around from one thing to the next, it can get really easy to just be like, okay, like get it done, like out of the way, like go from one thing to the next. This might sound cheesy, but like it really actually does work for your nervous system, and your mental state too. Like it's a really good way to like give yourself a hit of dopamine and like really maximize on the dopamine that you get from like checking something off the box, is to literally, if you do something, if there's stuff in your life that's work related, that's like stressful, and you did the thing, do a little dance. Be like, yeah, I did it. Like whatever. Literally, I'm dead ass, you guys. Like shake your ass, wiggle around, do something that shows your body like, oh, we did the thing. It's done. Closure. And a little like that kind of movement tells your body we're safe. Everything is okay. We're good. If you sent the emails, if you did the errand that you had to do, if you did the homework, whatever you had to do, literally like actually give yourself a moment of like, I did it, to tell your body we don't have to worry about that thing anymore. It's done. It's like closure, on to the next thing, and gives you a little boost of energy. And it's also really good if you are in a space of trying to like manifest, if you have goals that you're working on, and if you're trying to just grow as a person in general, or like start new habits, or just like be your highest self, and you do something that moves you towards that goal or that thing, you need to acknowledge that. You need to, because it tells the universe like, hey, I acknowledge, like where thoughts go, energy flows. Okay, like whatever you focus on, you will get more of, because that's how your reticular activating system in your brain works, which it's basically just the filter in your brain that's going to focus on whatever you tell it to focus on. So it's like the more you focus on the things that you want, on like, hey, I did the thing, I can do hard things, your brain is going to learn, hey, we can do the things. And it's going to look for more opportunities for you to take those steps towards your goals. Don't want to get too much into the reticular activating system, but y'all should look it up, because it's really fucking powerful in creating your reality. And like when you hear people talk about like manifestation, like, oh, I manifested it, it's not woo-woo. It's a part of your brain. It's a science of how your brain works, and how you can literally teach your brain to look and highlight and show you the opportunities that are going to get you closer to where you want to be. There, it's going to highlight the things that you need to notice and pay attention to and have and see based on what you're training it to focus on. So anyways, look up the reticular activating system on your own time. It's really important and fascinating, but this can help with that. So all I want to say is just like celebrate, physically do something when you complete a task to get your nervous system be like, oh, we can do hard things, and relax, and it's all good. And that'll help that flexibility to be able to move in and out of meeting the challenges, and chilling. And it'll give you that hit of dopamine too, which is a happiness chemical we get when we accomplish things and check things off. A really good way too, if you have a really busy schedule, if you've got a lot going on, is to use something called the Pomodoro technique, which is essentially setting a time limit for yourself where you set a timer for 25 minutes, you work on a task nonstop, no distractions, 25 minutes. It's like, oh yeah, I can do 25 minutes of like whatever work I gotta do. And then you take 5 minutes to relax, move, stretch, drink water, connect with your body. And then you set the timer again for another 25 minutes and go back into working. That's a really great way to help keep your system regulated while you're doing whatever work you gotta do. So using time, that's really good too if you're someone that like struggles to like get shit done, if you procrastinate shit anyways, like using timers, using the Pomodoro technique is a great way to help keep you regulated and keep you moving and doing things. How are those feeling for you guys? Finding your off switches, like finding those moments of closure and regulation and helping train your nervous system to move into what it needs to do to meet the challenges, handle the stressful things, and like moving back into regulated space. Does that feel doable? And like, yeah, that makes sense. I want to do that. I can implement those things into my lifestyle. Heck yeah, I believe in you guys. It'll really make such a difference. And I know it's easy to say like, oh, I don't have time. You do have time, and it'll give you more energy to do the things that you want to do or that you have to do. The more grounded and connected with your body you are, time will slow down. So if you feel like you're always in a rush, there's not enough time to do everything, and you're like, feeling spastic or overstimulated or just like a squirrel running around trying to do all the things, and you're like, I don't have time to meditate, I don't have time to stretch, like I'm just trying to get it all done. When you put energy into doing those things that help regulate your nervous system, that help you get embodied, you're going to be more focused, you're going to be more present, which makes it's this weird experience where time does like actually slow down, because you're more present, you're moving more slowly, you're not just like whoa, kind of spastic, sympathetic, activated all the time. So it truly does make a huge difference in your life. And the last thing, I know we are at 5:03. This is the last thing to think about in terms of healing burnout, making sure it doesn't happen, preventing it. One other thing is to set boundaries with your time and energy so that you're not always on and available, okay? Especially, I mean, depending on what kind of work you do or what kind of things you have going on in your life, setting boundaries, knowing and being really clear with yourself of when you are available to handle work things or to whatever it is that you've got going on is really important, because if you're always available for people who like need you to do stuff or want stuff from you, or you feel the pressure to always be available, or you can't say no, that is going to keep you in chronic sympathetic activation. If you can't put your phone down at the end of the day and be like, I'm not needed, nothing is expecting of me, I don't need to like do anything for anyone, you're not gonna be able to drop back down into a more relaxed state. Or like if your boss can just call you at any point right now, if there's no boundary set of like, I'm not available here, or like you could just get a text from someone that's going to be like, I need something from you at any point, your system's always going to be on. So being really clear with your own time and energy boundaries so that you do have time when you can know like nothing is expected of me right now. I don't need to be checking my phone, I don't need to be checking my emails. Stuff like that is really important too. Olivia said that totally resonated. I've noticed I have a habit of not having time, and then I end up scrolling or using my time inefficiently because I don't have the energy, right? Yep. You're like, I don't have time to like take care of myself, and then the things that you have to do feel that much harder because your energy is like, what? Totally. So it helps so much to make that time and space for things in your life. Other things that help, journaling and brain dumping, like taking all the thoughts in your brain and just like, whoa, getting them out onto paper. This is something that really helped me get out of burnout, is just really working to declutter my mind and give my brain space to process like all my jumbled thoughts and experiences from every day. Getting that backlog of like stress and thoughts and emotions and stimulation, like, out of my head and like down onto paper. This can literally look like, it doesn't have to be profound or anything. Like, you can just set a timer for 20 minutes once every day and just write whatever random shit is in your head. Even if you're like, I don't even know what to write, I'm kind of hungry, I want a piece of toast, oh my god, so and so said this. Like, it can be total word vomit, like random shit. Or it can be like your thoughts and feelings and reflections, like just whatever, like do a stream of consciousness. Is so important. This will really help too if you're feeling creatively blocked at all, or if you're feeling like brain fog, forgetfulness, just like fuzziness at all. Burnout, and when you're in that state of freeze, it can really feel like you're simultaneously like drowning in thoughts and like overwhelmed, and also like unable to form like a coherent sentence at the same time. So this really helps create space if you're feeling that space of overstimulation over in your mind. A huge thing for me this year has been organic movement as part of my yoga practice, just laying down my mat and just literally doing whatever, like not even being like, all right, proper yoga like pose and like, making it very linear and like perfect, but like just like being a gooey blob and like spending time on my mat to like find what feels good and stretch, and just like giving the reins over to my body to move the energy how it wants to be moved. That's a really interesting practice. I invite you guys to, on your own, like if you have a yoga mat, close your eyes the whole time and just use like your ability to feel like, okay, here's the mat, and just stay on the mat and like let your body do whatever it wants to do. Give it full permission. Don't even care what you look like, to move, wiggle, like, oh my gosh, you will feel amazing, and you'll give your body this way to discharge some of that sympathetic mobilizing energy. And it's really grounding, so good for embodiment, connecting with your body. Spiritual squirrel practices. This is something I'll do if I'm feeling particularly like all over the place. I will just set myself, I like to do this like once a week. This is really good for artists if you need to be in a space of creativity. If you're having creative blockages, if you're not feeling connected to your art, if you're feeling kind of just like blah, if you feel like you've lost like this a magical spark of like feeling inspired. I haven't really talked about this ever before, but what I'll do is like I will come down here in my studio and shut the door and like almost have like a play date for myself, where I'm like, I put my journal over here on the ground, put my tarot cards over here, got my meditation bolster over there, and my yoga mat over here, my music over here, and I will just like vibe around and like literally be a squirrel. Like I'll be like, oh, like random thought, write it down in my journal. Oh my god, now I'm inspired to like dance and flow, and then like, oh, I'm gonna lay on my bolster and like breathe and like contemplate life, and then like put on music and like dance around, and then pull a tarot card. Oh my god, I had another idea. Go write it down, and like let myself be like a squirrel, like, and just bounce around and kind of tap into this like childlike, playful energy. I know that sounds super weird, but if you try it out and just set yourself up in like a little temple space where you're like, all right, phone is off, like I'm not doing anything, I'm just going to be with myself, I'm going to journal my thoughts, I'm going to move and be in this organic, kind of very feminine, fluid, creative space. magic can happen there. That's where you're going to get so many ideas. You're going to start having like spiritual downloads of just like ideas and clarity, aha moments coming to you, the more that you just create space to be with yourself and not constantly be taking in stimulation from the outside world, but to just let yourself be in an organic, like, play date with yourself. Be a spiritual squirrel, okay? It'll do wonders for your mental health and your creativity. It'll actually help you be a lot more focused in life, because a lot of times our whole days are so structured from like one thing to the next. It's really healthy to give yourself space to like have no structure and be a little bit ADD and be a little bit like, whoa, like, and let yourself just flow from one thing to the next. You know, things that connect you with your feminine energy. So this can look like soft, slow, like yin yoga. Oh my God, yin and restorative yoga. If you're feeling burnt out, depleted, oh yeah. Or to very fiery, strong goddess practices, connecting in with different goddess archetypes like Kali, who just, this is something we play with a lot in YDA, playing with different goddess archetypes, but I also have some goddess archetype classes on my YouTube channel too, that can really help just connect you again with like that source energy of aliveness. If you're feeling dull, if you're feeling depleted, like connecting with different feminine archetypes through movement can be a really powerful way to like get you back in your throne and remind you that you're a fucking queen, remind you that you are that bitch and you can do anything through movement. And the last thing that I will just say is that if you're dealt with burnout or depression, or you've been in that space of just feeling like you lost your sparkle and you're just not having it in life, you feeling dull, feeling blah, feeling depleted, feeling uninspired, they can feel like the same thing, and both are calling for deep rest. Find it very interesting, like when you're depressed, you're feeling that like, ugh, your body is calling for deep rest. If you are depressed, you need deep rest, right? There's something in your body that is calling for a fucking break, okay? This doesn't always mean deep rest as in sleeping and shutting off and doing nothing, okay? When your system has been operating in fight and flight for so long and it goes into that freeze, that burnout, that dorsal vagal shutdown, part of healing is finding restful practices that thaw out the freeze, that bring your life force back online. And that means finding life-giving activities. Sometimes that's going to be really slow and still. And I had to do a lot of restorative and yin yoga this year. A lot of my yoga practice looked like getting on the floor and laying on my bolster and like crying and just being like, I am a blob. And a lot of it too also looked like finding things that were activating in a way that was like replenishing, like helping me tap into like my sense of wonder and inspiration and excitement, right? So I mean activation in that way. Like there are things that are active that can be restful, that give yourself a fucking break. Because like if you're in burnout, there's something in your system that's like, a pattern needs to change. Something is not like serving us right now. Something is really draining us. So if you're in this space, like practicing other hobbies, other art forms can be really good. Like earlier this year, I randomly for 3 months like started like a hat business where I was painting and like selling hats and not doing anything like really, it was not dance related at all. It was like just painting, which is something that I used to love to do and just hadn't made time for. So like those little things that they don't need to like be your huge career, but like those can be really life-giving, and interrupt the pattern that you've been in. It can be something new. Getting out into nature, oh man, go lay on the ground. Go lay in a meadow. Go get in some water. Go to a mountaintop. Getting together with your friends, like it can be really easy when you're feeling burnt out to withdraw and feel isolated and feel like you're alone and you're too tired and you just like don't want to. Like part of burnout is really just feeling like you want to get away from the world and just shut down and, you know, get out of it all. But being around people can help you get into that ventral vagal state again, because it's that social connection. So find your people that you feel really safe and open, and get with them. And then learning new things too, like interrupt the pattern you've been in, infuse some newness into your life, like learning new things, taking a new class, trying a new dance style, literally anything. Like read a book on something that you didn't know before. Like that can be very enlivening and very empowering to bring your life source back. You know, when I say you need deep rest, sometimes this means that you need rest and a break from certain patterns in your life that are draining you. Maybe it's rest from playing a character or playing a role or acting a certain way that's kind of purely for safety. Because a lot of the times, like the roles and the people that we play in our daily interactions, when we put on the face of like, this is who I am and this is who these people expect of me, or this is who I have to be to receive love, receive approval, which equates to safety in our nervous system. Like reflect on, do you feel good as the character that you're playing? Or are you doing it just because you know this is who you've always been? This is who people expect of you. Is there people pleasing that you do in your life to act a certain way to, you know, receive a sense of safety? That's going to affect your nervous system. Do you need deep rest from playing a role or living in a way that isn't in alignment with what your soul really wants? It's something to reflect on. Who are you being too? Because that can put you in a state of stress, or just living not in alignment with who you really want to be, or feeling like you have to be a certain way. There's only a certain version of you that is allowed at the table. Or you're afraid of what would happen if you changed. Would people like you? Would you still receive love in the same way? These are deep, like human. The need for love and approval and safety through community is a deeply ingrained human need. Like we are pack animals, so it's ingrained into our nervous system to put the safety of having love and connection first, sometimes over our authenticity. And that can start to get really depleting too. Like staying in a relationship longer than you should because you're scared to be alone, but you can't stay, you know, you can't stay with that person. You need to grow. Or staying in a friend group because even though you don't really vibe with them anymore, but like, and maybe you've grown, but you know what I mean? Like maybe you've grown past being a certain version of yourself that holding on to it and still trying to be is draining your energy. It's just something to think about, just to reflect on. Are you living in alignment with like what your heart really wants? Are you living authentically to who you really want to be, or do you feel kind of trapped in a certain way of being? Do you need deep rest from playing a part that doesn't feel authentic? Do you need deep rest to shed a coat that feels too small for you anymore? Just something to reflect on as well, that can be very freeing and very life-giving as well, to break out of certain patterns that are keeping you depleted. But my friends, that is our presentation for today. So hopefully this has given you a lot to think about in terms of how you live, how you take care of yourself, your lifestyle, and I hope you move through the world with more awareness of what's happening in your body at all times, not just move through the world just in your mind, but really get more embodied and connected with yourself, because that is something that will help give you life every single day, is to really take care of your body and try to work towards being able to drop back down into that what we meditated on very first. It's in your body. You took that mind body screenshot. See what kind of things you can do in your life to bring that feeling online more. Start to notice in your life, where do you feel that? What kind of people in your life bring that feeling online? What kind of spaces, what kind of environments, what kind of things are bringing you into that happy place? And how can you start to implement little things in your day to have that start to be a little bit more of your baseline and be able to get back into that place after handling stressful situations? Because it is possible to live with that being more of your baseline state of operating. So I know we went a little bit over, but we started a little bit late anyways. But if you guys have any questions or any thoughts, I would love to hear them or answer them, or anything else I can do to serve you this evening before we wrap up. And I'll send you all a list too of certain classes and things you can try that I kind of mentioned and talked about here as well. But yeah.
I have like, I don't really know if it's a mindset problem or more of like a nervous system threat problem, but I feel like, especially when I am already pretty burnt out or already in more of a freeze state, like all the habits and practices and things that help you get out of it and de-thaw and everything, like even though I know,
When you're like deep in it.
yeah, like I know that they're like for the better and make me feel good, and they're different from like work and stress inducing things, they still like feel like something that's hard that I have to do, and then I like stress myself out over it when it's like that's not the point. I don't know if there's like, if you've ever experienced that way where like self-care feels like um just like another task, or that kind of like headspace, if that makes sense. Like I don't know how to
Well, no, you make
break free from that.
No, you make total sense, because it's really hard when you're burnt out. You're just like, everything feels like 10 times harder. When you're in that space and you're just feeling blah, sometimes like it was helpful for me to, well, one, if you have anyone in your life that can help you out, like, because we it's not a bad thing to rely on people. Like I had to ask my husband to be like, literally make my ass get up and do yoga, like please. Like I'm not, like I had to tell him like and explain to him, like when I was going through like this space of burnout, like I'm really struggling to like get out of bed. I need you to like help drag my ass up and like make me go down and get on my yoga mat, even if I'm like, no, I'm sad. Like I don't even give a fuck like that. Like maybe you can ask like someone in your family to be like, if you notice that I'm fucking like laying in my bed and haven't done anything and seem like I'm burnt out, like can you please like help remind me that that's what I need to do? Or any little bit of like grit that you have left in you. Like sometimes it does take like really making that tough decision, even when you don't want to like force yourself to get up and just be like 5 minutes. 5 minutes is all I'm gonna do, okay? Just to get it started. And once you get the ball rolling, it's usually easier. It's just the getting up and getting it started. So sometimes it feels like such a huge task. They're like, okay, I'm feeling like shit. I got to figure out how to like heal myself and get myself feeling better. And that feels overwhelming. So make it into a bite-sized piece of be like, I'm going to try for 5 minutes. I'm going to try and stretch and get on my mat or do some breath work or dance around for 5 minutes. And if I'm still feeling tired, okay, then I'll go back to bed. But like just 5 minutes, And usually by that 5 minutes, you will have resourced yourself enough that you can keep going. But it's like breaking it down so it doesn't feel so overwhelming, and being like, I can literally do 5 minutes of something and help for sure.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's tough when you're like in that space. You can also like set up a system with like your friends and be like, hey, I'm really trying to hold myself more accountable to helping myself when I'm in this situation. You can explain to them, I have a really hard time. This is something like I did with a friend of mine earlier this year, where I was like, if I text you that I'm like, I'm not feeling great, I'm feeling burnt out, like, will you call me and like give me a pep talk? Be like, Roxy, get your ass up. Or like talk to me about what's going on, you know, or just something. Because that too, like having someone to connect with, get you closer to that ventral vagal state, that social connection. It'll give you to get some energy moving, to do something for yourself. So if you have someone in your life that you feel safe with, that you could let them know, like, hey, if I text you that like I'm feeling really blah, like, are you down to like send me a pep talk text or voice message, and like I'll do the same for you too, like we can like help support each other. It's a really great way as well. So if you're in that state, you're like, all I can do is fucking text my friend that I'm feeling burnt out, to receive that support can be really helpful. That's what helped me, because it's like, just do it when you're in that space, but it's hard.
Right.
But leaning on others, and then also like turning the pressure knob way down and be like, 5 minutes, I can do 5 minutes. And that 5 minutes will get you to the next 5 minutes. And then minutes. But just being like, I don't have to heal myself completely in one go right now, but I can little by little. Yeah, totally. Abby, did you had your hand up, right?
Yeah, it wasn't a question, but I was just gonna say your spiritual squirrel practice is something I do very often, that exact thing, and it is great. I highly recommend it.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yay.
Yeah.
I like put it on there. I was like, I'll just throw that in. We'll see.
No, I loved it. I was like, yes, someone else does this too, because it's just playtime. It's so fun.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's so important to like connect with that child, like kind of free flowing and very feminine spirit. Like the feminine is just like, whoosh, like you cannot contain her. Like you need to body. Yeah. Just like that play, like following your instinct of what feels good, what feels like pleasurable, and like allows you to tap into your like, creative space. Oh my God.
Yeah. And I think it's nice to just create that space for yourself where you like don't have to be thinking about what you could be doing right now or what you should be doing. Like just setting that space up for yourself and like doing whatever the heck it is that you need to be doing in that moment. Like it's powerful.
It really is.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I haven't heard anyone else doing that. So that's yay. Yeah. I want to do that with like a bunch of people. Be like, I'm just gonna set up watercolors over here, got my tarot cards over here, little yoga section over here.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know, like little.
Yes, I'm for it.
Like, might as well just like have your own journey. Like
it reminds me of like station activities.
Yeah,
we were doing like story days.
Little station.
Yeah.
Just rotating around.
Yeah, make like little stations for yourself. But yeah, I mean, also if you guys like ever are into like marijuana too, like just a little bit, get in your flow. Oh man, I cannot tell you the amount of yoga classes or dance classes or like healing rituals that I have come up with just from being in like a space of free flow and just being like, whoa, I have an idea, or like create a whole new class just because I'm like messing around with like a stretch and just being like, whoa, this is nice. Like, you know, so it's if if you need a creative boost, it's such a good way, and just to like connect with yourself too, like create that relationship with yourself where you enjoy being in your own presence and you can have fun just on your own. Like that inspires a lot of confidence too. You're like, I'm fucking don't need anyone else. I'm have a great time with myself. It's really good too. Cool. Well, everyone, if you have any follow-up questions or anything like pops into your brain afterwards, just feel free to send me a message on Instagram. But thank you for coming today. I really enjoyed sharing this with you all. Yeah, and I can send you guys a follow-up list of resources and classes and little things that I kind of mentioned throughout here so that you can explore some of this and take from all the classes, find what works for you, create your off switch rituals. It'll really change your life. All right, everyone, have an amazing weekend. Happy New Year too. Oh my gosh. All right, babes. Mwah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Bye.